Why is everything getting so expensive? Prices aren't going up as fast as they did in 2022, but they're still quite high. And we've all noticed that prices for just about everything seem to be on a never-ending uphill climb. It's not just your imagination. This is real, and it has a name: inflation. Inflation is a bit like a puzzle. It's made up of many pieces, all interconnected and affecting each other. And in this video, we will dive into the different pieces that make up this thing affecting each and every one of us. We're here to help make sense of it all, so stay with us as we unravel why in the world things cost so much more than they did 5 years ago. First things first, let's define inflation. Inflation, in the simplest terms, is the rate at which the general level of prices for goods and services is rising. As these prices go up, each unit of currency buys fewer goods and services. In other words, the purchasing power of money decreases over time. Imagine having a dollar bill last year that could buy you a cup of coffee. Fast forward to today, and that same dollar might only get you half a cup. That's because the price of coffee has gone up, but the value of your dollar has gone down. So, inflation is the reason why your dollar today might not stretch as far as it did a year ago. Now, what causes inflation? Well, let's break it down into three main causes: demand-pull inflation, cost-push inflation, and built-in inflation. Firstly, we have demand-pull inflation. Picture this: a highly sought-after product is in short supply. Everyone wants to get their hands on it, but there just aren't enough to go around. What happens? The price shoots up. This is the basic principle of demand-pull inflation. When the demand for goods or services outstrips supply, prices naturally increase. Next, we have cost-push inflation. This happens when the cost of production goes up. Let's say the price of raw materials or labor increases. These increased costs are then passed on to consumers in the form of higher prices. If a manufacturer needs to pay more to produce goods, they're likely to charge more for those goods. Lastly, there's built-in inflation. This is a bit more complex. Built-in inflation is the expectation of future inflation. If people expect prices to rise in the future, they might ask for higher wages or increase prices to keep up with these expected increases. This in turn can lead to a self-fulfilling prophecy where inflation occurs because people expect it to. So, you see, inflation is not a random or arbitrary phenomenon. It is the result of various economic factors at play. Whether it's a surge in demand for products, an increase in production costs, or the anticipation of future inflation, these elements can all lead to a rise in the general level of prices, which we know as inflation. In essence, inflation happens due to an imbalance in supply and demand, increased production costs, and the expectation of future inflation. Let's take a look at how these causes are playing out in today's world. The past couple of years have been a whirlwind of events that have significantly impacted our global economy. One of the major factors contributing to inflation today is the disruption in global supply chains. From factories shutting down to shipping delays, these disruptions have led to a shortage of goods. And as we've discussed earlier, when there's high demand and low supply, prices rise. Increased consumer spending is another driving force behind inflation. During the pandemic, many people saved more money than usual. Now, as the world is slowly returning to normal, this money is being spent, increasing demand for goods and services. This surge in spending, combined with the supply chain disruptions, is pushing prices up. In addition to these factors, global events and crises are also playing a role. For instance, the war in Ukraine has affected food prices worldwide. Ukraine is a major exporter of food, and the conflict has led to a decrease in exports, causing food prices to rise. Droughts and wildfires have also contributed to lower crop yields, further driving up food costs. Housing prices too have seen a significant rise. By the end of 2022, the average home price reached a staggering $535,800. This increase in housing prices doesn't just affect homeowners, it also impacts renters, as apartment rents are predicted to grow by 3.3% in 2023. These events, among others, are causing a perfect storm, leading to the rising prices we're seeing today. Opening: how does inflation affect you and me? Inflation is like a silent financial partner, subtly influencing our purchasing decisions and lifestyle. It's something that we don't often notice, yet its impact is felt in our daily lives. Think about your weekly grocery run. Have you noticed that your grocery bill is gradually creeping up? This isn't just because you've developed a newfound love for imported avocados. Inflation is at work here, raising the cost of food and other goods. Now let's look at the fuel station. Notice how the price per gallon keeps inching higher. That's inflation again. It's not only about the global fuel shortages or supply chain disruptions. Inflation contributes to these price hikes, making your commute or road trips a bit more costly. But inflation doesn't stop at your grocery bill or gas tank. It reaches as far as the housing market. Remember the average home price reaching over $500,000 by the end of 2022? That's due in part to inflation. It increases the cost of materials and labor, driving up housing prices. Even if you're renting, don't think you've escaped. Apartment rents are forecasted to grow by 3.3% in 2023. And what about your hard-earned savings? Inflation chips away at your purchasing power. While your savings account might show the same number, inflation means that your money can buy less and less over time. But it's not all doom and gloom. While inflation can be a tough pill to swallow, it's also a sign of a dynamic economy. It's a signal that consumers are spending, businesses are producing, and the wheels of the economy are turning. Closing. Inflation touches every aspect of our lives, from what we eat to where we live. So, is inflation all doom and gloom? Not quite. Though it may seem counterintuitive, inflation can actually be a sign of a healthy, growing economy. It's often an indicator that businesses are thriving, wages are increasing, and consumers are spending. In essence, a bit of inflation can be the pulse of a vibrant economy. But don't worry. Governments aren't just sitting idly by as prices rise. They are actively working to manage inflation. Central banks, like the Federal Reserve in the United States, use monetary policy tools such as adjusting interest rates to keep inflation within a target range. Similarly, governments can use fiscal policy, altering taxes and spending, to influence the economy. These measures can help ensure that inflation doesn't get out of hand. While inflation can strain our wallets, it's not all bad news. It can signal a growing economy and prompt helpful policy changes. How can we navigate through inflation? That's the question on everyone's mind. The answer lies in being proactive and smart. One way is to diversify your investments. Instead of putting all your eggs in one basket, spread them out. This way, if one sector suffers due to inflation, you have others to fall back on. Considering fixed-rate loans is another strategy. With these loans, your payments stay the same, regardless of inflation. This can be a big relief when prices are on the upswing. Budgeting is crucial too. Plan for the possibility of things costing more. This doesn't mean you need to live in fear of price hikes, but being prepared can make a world of difference. And lastly, stay informed. Knowledge is your best ally in times of inflation. Understanding the economic landscape, keeping an eye on the news, and being aware of market trends can help you make informed decisions. While we can't stop inflation, we can equip ourselves to handle it better.